Hello and welcome to Black Love and Cinema with Manny and Jess, where we break down love and relationships through the lens of your favorite films. So today we're doing something a little different. We are jumping on a trend, and this trend is focused on a personal curriculum. But to be true to what the purpose of our channel is, we have repurposed this curriculum to help you amplify your love life. We've called it a personal curriculum for your love life. It's a 90-day self-directed and structured approach to improving your love life through intentional learning and behavioral change. My name is Jessica, and my husband is not available for this episode, but he contributed his feedback, and I hope that you enjoy it. So let's delve right into it. I'm going to do this sort of like course style because really, man, Stella and I, we really are nerds like that. We actually do curricula all the time in our own house. So every Saturday we have what we call a retreat, and that is basically where we take a few hours out of the day to study something together. So we just wrapped up the marriage course from Alpha, and we are beginning a new Bible study together. And in addition to the Alpha course that we just completed, the pre-marriage, the marriage course, we also completed my reading plan that I actually wrote from the Narrative Reading Bible, and we finished that last a couple of weeks ago. So we got done with it pretty early. So we read the entire Bible this year, and on Saturdays we've been dedicated to focusing on anything that will help us with our marital relationship. So everything from sexuality to communication to conflict resolution to emotional intelligence, literally everything that goes into cultivating a stable, satisfying, and sustainable relationship, we do that. So when we present anything to you, trust and believe we are actually doing it. We don't just learn it, we apply it. And that happened long before we even knew each other. So this is no different. We are working on a personal curriculum for our love life, but we're also working on personal curricula for ourselves. I'm going to be beginning a master's degree program in January. I'm going to be studying biblical studies with an emphasis on biblical theology. This will be my second master's degree, and I'm excited about it, but I also know I have a lot on my plate. My husband has his own goals that he'll be focused on, but regardless of what we're doing, we are committed to ensuring that we put a lot of effort and intentionality into building our marriage. And that's what we want to help you do with this curriculum. So if you're not familiar with personal curriculum, it's actually pretty new to me as well. It is a self-directed, structured approach to intentional learning that is applied specifically to your love life and relationships, at least the way we present it. So we adapted this from Elizabeth Jean 2024 TikTok concept. Apparently, this woman came up with this idea a few years ago, well, I guess a year or so ago on TikTok, and it's just now taking off on social media platforms. And basically, her idea was to help people eliminate brain rot. We're If you're like me, you're chronically online and you're like, I don't know if I know anything anymore, I'm with you. So the idea is to basically take learning into our own hands and getting off the internet. We're going to read books. We're going to do programs and courses that help us develop in any area of our life that interests us. And so it's a framework that promotes systematic way to assess, learn, practice, and sustain personal growth. But for our purposes, it's going to focus on relationship growth over time. And so the key things that I want to emphasize is that it's self-directed. So you're going to learn whatever you want or need to learn on your own terms at your own pace. It is structured. Even if you didn't consider yourself a good student, if you say you don't like school, there was something beneficial about being in school because they gave us a structure. We always knew what we had to do all the time. And some of you maybe didn't finish school. Some of you may have been institutionalized. You spent some time in jail. And the benefit of that is, again, it's the structure. So This personal curriculum is created on your own terms, so it allows you to establish what that structure is, and it helps you create a learning process that fits your lifestyle at various seasons and stages of your life. And then it also promotes holistic development. So whether you want to grow spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, socially, financially, it doesn't matter. All of those things, if you really think about it, they're all interconnected. How you feel one way will affect how you feel in other areas of your life. And so you get to decide what you want to focus on at a point in time, and you get to develop your whole person. And finally, it promotes learning and application. So you shift from passively consuming information, which the internet causes us to do, right? We're always scrolling and we hear little snippets of anything that fits whatever we already think or believe about things. And no sooner than we scroll past it, do we forget it. And you almost question, like, do you actually know anything? So this focuses on shifting from consuming information to actively learning. And more than that, you're not just learning, you're going to apply what you learn, which is a key missing piece. So because we're Black Love and Cinema, we have to be on brand, and we're going to leverage a movie to help you apply this framework. And we like to use films that either are written, directed, or star Black actors or creatives. In this case, we have Couples Retreat, which if you look at the thumbnail immediately, you're like, those are not Black people. But right there in the back, we have Faison Love and Callie Hotz. So I love this movie so much. It came out in 2009. And to this day, it cracks me up. My husband and I watched it a couple of times in the last 3 months just for entertainment. And I love this movie, but I think it would be a great example that we could use to help you see how you can develop your personal curriculum for your love life. So, Couples Retreat, as I mentioned, came out in 2009, and it is a comedy that was directed by Peter Billingsley, who's basically known for A Christmas Story. Ralphie, he was Ralphie. The whole storyline is basically there's four couples that head to a tropical island resort called Eden. Initially, they're there to support their friends Jason and Cynthia, who are having marriage troubles and contemplating divorce. But then when they get there, they discover that participation in the resort's intensive couples therapy program is not optional. It is mandatory for all guests, and on top of that, they learned that they all have issues in their relationship, even though they aren't having issues like Jason and Cynthia that may result in divorce. So this film stars Vince Vaughn as Dave, Jason Bateman as Jason, John Favreau as Joey, and then we have Kristen Bell plays Cynthia, Kristen Davis is Lucy, Callie Hott plays Trudy, who is Shane's partner, who is played by Big Perm or Big Worm, whose real name is Faison Love. So let's talk about these couples and how they are going to be used in this discussion. I'm going to begin with an overview of each couple. So Shane and Trudy, Faison Love and Callie Hott. Shane is recently divorced, and he brings his much younger girlfriend Trudy to Eden. He is clearly on the rebound, although I don't think he would call it that. And basically, he's trying to prove that he's still desirable. Their relationship lacks depth. Trudy is 20 years old, and so their connection is pretty much superficial. She's all about having fun. She's all about living her best life. I mean, she's being 20. He is an older individual. The age isn't there. I'm guessing around 40 years old. And it seems that he hasn't really processed his divorce. And it seems like he has a lot of self-esteem issues. And so he does a lot of things in this film trying to prove himself to Trudy. So we're going to look at them as a case study for our personal curriculum to see what it would look like if you're in a similar situation for you to build your personal curriculum. And then we have Dave and Ronnie. They are the sort of everyman couple, if you will. They are married with kids and they've settled into their suburban life. And for all intents and purposes, things seem to be going well. So their issue isn't like dramatic conflict. There's nothing wrong happening, but basically they've gotten into a place of complacency. But it seems like no one really recognizes that in their house. They don't have a spark anymore, and they've fallen under the weight of daily routines. Kind of like what my husband and I always talk about, people get into roles. You see your partner as a role, like a wife or a mom or a dad or a husband. And so you forget each other as a man and woman and the person that you were wildly attracted to from the beginning. So they're caught up in parenting, they're caught up in working, they're caught up in domestic responsibilities, but they're not caught up in each other. Dave is laid back, which is good at some points, but his laid backness, if you want to call it that, is to a fault. And Ronnie craves romance. She's clearly wanting something more, but she's super supportive of her husband, which I mean, you respect that, but it's evident she needs attention. And unfortunately, Dave doesn't see it until they get to Eden. So this couple is incredibly relatable to people who have been married long term, or maybe not even married, but just have been in a long term relationship, because they represent stability that kind of slides into complacency, perhaps even apathy, depending on your context. And basically, the struggle is, how do you keep your marriage or your relationship alive when life gets busy, or when life starts lifing, or when you just kind of get used to each other? Our third couple is Jason and Cynthia. And basically, they are the reason for this trip. And it's kind of funny that we are doing a presentation for this, because that is exactly how Jason and Cynthia presented their issues to their friends. They did a PowerPoint basically spelling out that they were on the verge of divorce, they were contemplating divorce, and this was their last resort attempt to save their marriage. The divorce was caused by some issues that they were having with fertility, and it was wearing on them so much emotionally that everything in their life became like a program. So this couple is in genuine crisis, and it's so evident they love each other. I mean, Jason breaks into his friend's house pleading for his help. Bless his heart. It makes my eyes water every time I see him do that. But the reality is, they don't know how to get themselves out of it. No matter how logical they are, no matter how many spreadsheets and PowerPoints they have, they can't figure this out. And so they're hoping that these experts on Eden, along with the support of their friends, can help them revive and save their marriage. So the process of trying to get pregnant and dealing with that issue primarily has drained all the joy and spontaneity out of their marriage. They're rigid, they're scheduled, they're mechanical, and they treat their marriage like a project rather than a friendship, and rather than a partnership, rather than something that's worth enjoying. So they are very much type A, but in this context, it's not working for them. It's definitely working against them. And then we have Joey and Lucy. These guys are high school sweethearts who married young, and it's likely because Lucy got pregnant during around prom season, which I don't know how many people have had that story. I had my kid before prom. I was still a sophomore. But anyway, they both, Joey harbors resentment, and I think Lucy does low key as well, about missing out on those years where people, I say, mistakenly tell their kids, their youth, to sow their wild oats. So they think that they're missing out on something because they've been married for so long, and they both openly flirt with other people. And in the meantime, Lucy feels neglected and unappreciated. Her husband is just kind of like, they've got a lot of passive aggressiveness going on in their relationship. And it's just really awkward and uncomfortable. And they both bring up their desires to cheat on each other to their friends who are not supportive, but it's almost like they think their friends should understand what they're going through, and they almost want their friends to co-sign with their ideas. But in reality, this couple needs to just get on, they need to decide whether they want to stay together and they need to decide how to revive their relationship based on the season and stage of life that they're in now. And part of that season and stage is their daughter is now going off to college. So their whole life since high school has been about living for their kid, and now she's going to college. So they're in a whole different point of life where they need to figure out who they are and what does that mean for them as a couple, who they are as individuals, and what does that mean for them as a couple. But in the meantime, they also have to resolve their issues about anger and distrust and resentment and all the things that have built up over these years. So, what I've found is when looking at the personal curriculum across various platforms and seeing how people built their personal curricula, and then thinking about relationship education, what's most effective, and what my husband and I intend to do with Black Love and Cinema, we realized that it was important to come up with domains of relationship health. Now, these domains are something that we just made up, but they are grounded in research. And the primary goal though is to help you focus so that you don't have to think too hard about how to develop your curriculum. I find that a lot of people just kind of they're just kind of willy-nilly about it, and so they'll be like, oh, I'm interested in horticulture, and I'm interested in learning German, and I'm interested in learning how to sew dresses underwater. But they're just all over the place. I can't function like that. So my thought is I'll give you some domains. You don't have to follow these, but they're very much helpful. So our personal curriculum addresses 6 interconnected areas that form a complete picture of relationship health. The first one is faith. You've heard me say that we identify as Christian, and so sometimes Christian ideologies, values, and beliefs will come up on our channel. This is not the primary purpose, but we share what we believe. So even if you're not Christian or religious in that sense, I think that faith still applies to you because it basically speaks to your spiritual foundation. It speaks to your values, things that inform your morals and your ethics. And it helps you figure out how to navigate your life. There's something that drives you, even if it's not God or you don't believe there's a God that drives you. We believe that there's something that drives you. And if you can't see it from the perspective of God, then see it from a place of your values and your beliefs. The next one is family and friends. This is your community and support system. It can include your extended family relationships. It can include relationship with other couples. It can include your best friend. It can include community support. The whole point is that it helps to reduce isolation, and these people provide peer support. They provide perspective, different vantage points to help you grow as a person, grow as a couple, and they help you with accountability. And then we have finances. This is everything pertaining to your money, your budget, your financial goals. It includes financial planning, budgeting, debt management, savings, wealth building. And the thing that makes this so essential is that money conflict is still one of the top reasons, if not number one, causes of relationship stress and divorce. And so it is so imperative that you and your partner align on your financial vision, goals, plans, strategies, all the things. Next is fun. My husband is like sold out on this idea that couples need to be friends. I totally agree. He and I are just like best friends. We having fun all the time. And fun speaks to your quality time, your shared experiences. It speaks to your date nights and your shared adventures, your shared curiosity, creating positive memories. It's about maintaining friendship in your partnership, no matter how old you are, how long you've been together, what season or stage of life that you're in. It's about using positive sentiment to override all the bad. And I find that people who are friends, even if it literally is, they're just friends, it's just platonic and it's never been romantic, they seem to fare better when conflict arises because there's this longing to preserve their friendship and there's this longing to And then they remember and respect each other for what they were and what they're becoming. And when couples have that, the same thing happens. They preserve their friendship, and it just so happens to be a blessing that they're in a long-term partnership, that they're married. It's just, I don't know. We'll get into it one day, but it's just so much better when you're friends with your partner. The next category is fitness. This is all encompassing. So your health and wellness, your physical health, your mental wellness, your energy levels, self-care practices, and then it helps you think about things that impact your health, patience, resilience, sexual desire. It allows you to just show up and be vibrant, and not just in your relationship with your partner, but just everywhere. How do you show up physically, emotionally, mentally? These are kind of things that you want to evaluate. And then we have fidelity. Now, with fidelity, we're speaking to sexual intimacy and commitment, physical intimacy, emotional connection, faithfulness to your relationship, your intentional investment in the well being of your relationship, as well as cultivating deep bonding. And all of this, you will hear us say it time and again on our channel. All of this requires intentionality. So before you can improve, you must understand where you are. This phase creates your baseline and identifies your starting point for improvement. So what you're going to do is rate yourself honestly in every domain using a score from 1 to 10. So if you fall in 1 to 3, that means you are in a major struggle and this issue needs immediate attention. If you fall in 4 to 6, there's room for improvement and you're functioning but inconsistent. 7 to 9, things are going well, you're stable and healthy, and you might need just a few minor tweaks. And then if you're in a 10, which is rare, you're doing excellent. You are thriving in your life, in your relationship. And basically, that dynamic is life giving and it strengthens other areas. So, your aim is to score behavior, not intentions. Don't write what you intended to do, write what you actually did. Focus on behaviors and try to think about things how they've been for the last 30 to 60 days. If you want to go out further than that, then maybe the last quarter, the previous quarter, the last 90 days. And then you want to use a stress test and ask yourself, when pressure increases, does this area of our life and our relationship strengthen you or cause a collapse? And if you're not sure about numbers, round down instead of rounding up. Choose the lowest score so that you have more clarity and so that it's more of an honest assessment. And then finally, after you rate yourself, regardless of what your score is, you're going to write one sentence to justify that or to explain why you rated yourself. So you might say, I rated this a 5 because we talk about it, but we rarely act on it. And you know what it is. That's just a high level example. So if you're doing this in a relationship, you're part of a couple, then both of you should score yourselves independently. And then after that, show each other your scores and then talk about it. And what you'll find is that the gap that you have with your scores reveals what kind of conversation you need to have. So let's look at our couples again from the couples retreat to see how they may have scored. I have a lot of information here, but I'm going to try to keep it very high level because I'm already going well over the time that I planned for. So looking at Shane and Trudy, if we were to look at Faith, now Couples Retreat is not a faith-based film. Faith doesn't even come up in this. But again, I talked about how it could speak to your shared values. So if I was to rate them, I would give them a 4. We don't see very much about their spiritual alignment. That doesn't come up in the movie, but it is evident that their relationship lacks depth that shared values and beliefs typically provide. Shane is operating from a place of ego and avoiding the pain of his divorce rather than any real foundation. I mean, think about it. This old head went and looked for a young girl. Like this girl, she's 20 on the movie. She's younger than my son. And so then we have friends and family. There's no question that Shane has a great community and support system. So I rated him a 6. He has a solid friend group. His buddies are literally taking a trip together to a resort. but they don't really know Trudy, so it kind of makes that dynamic a little awkward. She's not really a priority for them, and that bothers Shane in the film. And then also, it just means that it's kind of been hard for her to merge into their dynamic as couples friends, if you will. Just for example, just before Jason and Cynthia gave their PowerPoint presentation, they were at the birthday party of Dave and Ronnie's kids, and instead of joining Shane in the presentation, Trudy was down there watching the clown with the kids. She's a kid. What can you say? And then just another example, finances. So this speaks to their money alignment. I'm pretty sure Shane and Trudy didn't have these conversations. But what we see in the film is that the Shane's divorce wrecked his finances, at least a little bit, because in the beginning of the movie, he asked Dave to co-sign a loan for a motorcycle that he could buy literally just to impress Trudy. This is a clear sign of financial instability and poor decision making that again is driven by his ego rather than wisdom and common sense. He is spending money he doesn't have to maintain an image for someone who really doesn't care about him like that. She saw a man who was available, who was vulnerable, who she assumed would do anything for her, and he is operating accordingly. And this is just a rebound relationship. So I could get into all of those ratings for him, but I'm not going to because I want you to see what this might look like for other couples. So let's go to Dave and Ronnie. Now, if we look at Dave and Ronnie, let's talk about his finances. So for Dave and Ronnie, I gave them a 7. Now, here's the thing. They're doing well financially, but Dave is hyper focused on financial stability. He works 10 plus hours a day to ensure that they don't have money problems. But remember, he did co sign a loan for his friend. So that's another issue. So basically, on paper, their finances are solid, right? But his obsession with work and financial stability has sort of created this wall between him and his wife, Ronnie. Their money is aligned, but the thing about it is you have to examine at what cost. He works so much that it's caused disconnection in their marriage. And the thing is, he don't even recognize it. So that brings us to another rating for them, which would be fun, quality time, and shared experiences, which I've given them a 3. This is a major struggle area. Dave comes home exhausted. He basically zonks out when he gets home. He doesn't want to think about anything, including but not limited to making small decisions like picking out cabinet handles, which is something his wife impressed on him to help her do at least a few times in the beginning of the movie. So he doesn't have any energy for romance. He doesn't have any energy to make more decisions. He doesn't have energy to deal with nothing. He just want to chill. And what happens is his wife is starving for engagement. She's starving for romance. And Dave is just too depleted to notice. He's like a good guy who works hard and provides for his family, but he doesn't get it. And that is causing problems that he's not even aware of. In fact, we kind of get the impression that Ronnie's not aware of it either, or at least she doesn't speak to it. And then, let's just pick another one that may align with that as well, which is fidelity. And that speaks to intimacy and emotional connection. They don't have any infidelity or trust issues, but Ronnie feels emotionally neglected. She is very much supportive. She is very patient, but she's not getting the romantic attention and support and emotional presence that she needs. Dave thinks they're fine, and you'll see later in the film, they say that they're average great, whatever that means. But he is blind to the fact that Ronnie wants so much more. And here's the problem. What is coming up for this couple is complacency. Dave doesn't recognize there's a problem until he is forced to confront it at the resort when he claims that the therapist is trying to ruin their marriage. But the therapist is basically helping them see and helping them call out what is actually going on in their relationship. So let's look at one more couple. I'm going to go to, let's just do Jason and Cynthia. So Jason and Cynthia, their fun is a huge struggle for them. I gave them a 2. So fun is quality time and shared experiences. Everything they do has become calculated, scheduled, measured, goal oriented. The spontaneity is dead. And basically, they have forgotten how to just enjoy each other without an agenda. And I mean a literal physical agenda or itinerary. So they need to work on that. And then the other part of it is fidelity. Now, they don't have an issue with infidelity, they have an issue with cultivating intimacy and emotional connection, which is why I've given them a 3. So this is their crisis zone. The physical intimacy has become mechanical. Neither one of them enjoy it. They just do it because they're supposed to. It's timed, it's scheduled, and it has no passion. It's all just to help them get pregnant, which is stressing them out, which brought them to this point. And not to mention, their emotional connection is strained because every single interaction carries with it the weight of their fertility struggles. So these are areas that they definitely need to work on. Their lowest area is fun. The next lowest area is fidelity. And this is the kind of stuff that they would focus on in their personal curriculum if they wanted to improve the quality of their love life. So I won't get into Jason or Joey and Lucy because I want you to see how to build this. So after you looked at your scores for the 6 domains, you really need to be real clear about what your availability is. Look at the time that it takes you to get ready for the day, your commute, wherever it is you're going, and how you get your kids ready, whatever goes into your regular routine to just function. Think about, calculate all that time and then subtract it from the time that you wake up to the time you go to sleep. So you can see how much time you can realistically devote to your personal curriculum. So thinking about that time, here's some things you might look for. You might look for early morning before everybody gets up. In this house, if I get up early in the morning, my husband's going to get up early. And for him, it's not always true. If he gets up early, sometimes I just stay knocked out. But let's just say I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's going to get up with me. That is our time before, he gets ready for work. And it gives us time to do devotional time our own, to do journaling, to do reading, to do exercise, whatever it is we want to do on our own. And then around 6:30, that's the time that we spend together. We have coffee time and conversation, and we'll have breakfast, and then he leaves for work. So you may have lunch breaks, 30, 45 minutes, an hour, depending on where you work or, what your school schedules look like. Think about what time you actually have and plan accordingly. Because the next thing you're going to do is establish your priorities based on the start, stop, and continue that you establish. And you're going to build a lesson plan. So for each of the domains that we talked about, you need to identify what to start, what to stop, and what to continue. If any of you have been in the corporate sphere for a while, even nonprofits, this may be familiar because it's usually corporate speak. But my goal is to help you answer these questions so that you have an established, focused, actionable goals that you can hone in on to create lesson plans that will actually improve the quality of your life and relationship. So you're going to limit your answers to each start, stop, and continue to 1 to 2 items per domain. And you want to ensure that these things are observable and actionable. And you want to focus on behavior change. So if we look at start, you're going to add what's missing and ask yourself this: what habit, practice, or skill is currently missing that must exist for this score to improve? Regarding stop, you want to remove anything that undermines your progress. So what specific behavior or pattern, if unchanged, will sabotage improvement in this area? And then continue. Preserve what's working. You want to ask, what is currently working in this area that must not be lost while I focus on improvement elsewhere? Again, answering these questions helps you establish focused, actionable goals and lesson plans that will actually improve your life. So if we looked at Shane and Trudy, those focus domains would be based on his lowest scores: fidelity, that's 2 points; finances, 3 points; and fitness, 3 points. So start. What could he add that's missing? He could start attending individual therapy to process the divorce grief that he's experiencing and rebuild his sense of self-worth. He could start creating a realistic post-divorce budget and stick to it. He could start prioritizing basic self-care like sleep, nutrition, and movement that feels sustainable for him. And he could start having honest conversations about what he actually wants from his relationship with Trudy. So, what's something he could stop doing? Stop means removing things that undermine his progress. So, he could stop using his relationship with Trudy to avoid processing his emotions about the loss of his wife, the fact that his wife left him. He could stop making impulsive financial decisions like buying motorcycles and other such things to impress Trudy. In fact, he took her on this trip, so he had to pay for her to go there. Think about it. He could stop pushing through activities that he doesn't have energy to do just to maintain an image. And he could stop comparing Trudy to his ex wife or using her as proof that he's still desirable. And what could he continue doing? This is preserving what's working. Shane could continue leaning on his friend group for support. They love him, they're there for him, and they have a great bond. So he should continue doing that. In fact, they even mentioned he got them in the divorce. He could continue being open to new experiences and connections, and he could continue showing up when he's committed to something. Another example I'll do is Dave and Ronnie. So their focus domains were fun, where they got a 3. Fitness was a 4. Fidelity was a 4. So start. They could start setting firm boundaries on work hours to protect their time and energy for their marriage. That's Dave in particular. They could start planning intentional date nights that require presence. Instead of just being in the same room watching a movie, for example, they could start planning date nights where if they watch a movie, then they are having a discussion afterward with a glass of wine over dinner, talking about what they learned and observed from the movie. He could start asking Ronnie what she needs instead of assuming everything is fine. And he could start engaging in small moments of connection, even about cabinet handles, being specific about the colors that he likes. What's some things that could stop? Stop working 10 hours or more every day. Stop coming home and zonking out, using that as a means of decompression to the neglect of your wife and your kids. Stop using financial stability as a substitute for emotional presence. And stop assuming that because they're average grade, because these are their words, that Ronnie feels the same way, that she's okay with the status quo. And what can you continue doing, Dave? Dave and Ronnie can continue their strong foundation of friendship and humor. They can continue committing to working through things together and, kind of reframing what that looks like for them. They can continue being great co-parents and they can continue supporting each other's goals. So there's so much that these people could do. And if you want to see more, then you can subscribe to our email list and we'll give you this entire presentation that is actually more in depth and actually comes with discussion points as well with this movie. But we're not going to dive into it because I just want you to get how this goes. Now, after you do your start, stop, continue exercise, you're going to write SMART goals. Now, each SMART goal that you write in this step traces directly back to the exercise you just completed. And so that framework exercise answered the question, what needs to change? Hint, start, stop, continue. The SMART goals answer this question, which of these changes am I actually going to prioritize and measure for the next 90 days? Now, here's an example of what that would look like. If your stop was we need to have weekly money conversations, if your stop was we need to stop avoiding talking about finances and continue, we need to continue having our monthly savings be automatically transferred. Then that would go directly into your SMART goal, which would be by March 23rd, I will have 15-minute money conversations with my partner that we will track on our shared calendar so that we will reduce our financial stress and be aligned on our spending decisions. And so what you're going to do is write 2 to 3 SMART goals maximum for this 90-day cycle. It helps to focus on writing one goal for your domain. So you're going to choose 2 to 3 domains. So one SMART goal for those 2 or 3 domains. And that's basically to make your life easier, frankly. So you got to be real clear about what your priorities are and really think about what's important. And the way you would do that is by focusing on the domains, the start stop activities, behavior changes that will have the greatest impact in your relationship. And so it could be starting a weekly money conversation so that it reduces stress across all domains, because you realize that financial anxiety is impacting your sex life. Financial anxiety is impacting your ability to sleep. Financial anxiety is making it difficult for you to connect emotionally because you don't want to talk about things because you're stressed out. So let's go back to our movie case studies for an example. Back to Shane and Trudy. His SMART goal, if we were to look at his finances, we could do one. By March 23rd, I will have created and followed a post-divorce budget for 12 consecutive weeks. Tracked it in a budgeting app so that I will stop making impulsive purchases to impress Trudy or anyone else for that matter, and to rebuild my financial stability. Another goal could be pertaining to his fitness. By March 23rd, I will establish a sustainable self-care routine that includes 3 days of moderate physical activity per week and consistent sleep habits that I will track in a journal or fitness app so that I have the energy to show up in my life, energized, excited to live and enjoy my relationship. And for Dave and Ronnie, if we were to look at the fun and quality time, the SMART goal could be by March 23rd, Ronnie and I will have completed 12 intentional date nights. That's every week night or week, every week for the whole 90 days, they will have a date night. And they're going to put that on their shared calendar. And it will require them to turn off their phones and other technology so they can be fully present with each other. And the aim is to help them rebuild connection outside of parenting and household logistics. And as far as their emotional connection, the SMART goal they could write is by March 23rd, I will have initiated 24 intentional check-ins with Ronnie. So that's 2 conversations a week using a conversation starter tool like the Paired app, or tracking it in a shared journal so that I can stay connected to my wife and actually know how she's feeling rather than assuming everything is fine. So after that, based on your SMART goals and your domain focus, you're going to research the best resources you can use for learning in your personal curriculum. So you might choose 1 to 2 books per major topic that you focus on. You might use educational podcasts or videos, apps and various software tools, online courses or programs, or even decide to participate in a community support group or find some accountability partners. Now, what you see here on the slide is criteria for evaluating resources that are good. And I get it, this is like hyper academic, but the idea is to look for resources that are not biased and that are evidence-based and that promote practical application and that are written by people who are credentialed or experienced to provide you the advice that they're giving. So what might that look like for Shane? Let's see. So for example, some resources that Shane might include or consider would be books such as Rebuilding When Your Relationship Ends by Bruce Fisher, and it focuses on divorce recovery. He might also be interested in Dave Ramsey products such as The Total Money Makeover or Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is helping him with his routines, developing a fitness routine. Podcasts he might be interested in besides Black Love and Cinema might be Where Should We Begin, which is a podcast by Esther Perel. And it basically has several episodes about rebound relationships and divorce, among other things that he may learn from. He could tune into the Dave Ramsey show to get some advice about finances and other financial podcasts that may appeal to him. Some tools he might use would be BetterHelp, and this would be a way for him to get ongoing professional support. He may download the app You Need a Budget, or he might use Mint for budget tracking. And it literally is called You Need a Budget, by the way. It's YNAB. He can download those apps to help him stay on track with his financial goals, or he could use a habit tracker to help him with his fitness. So he could use MyFitnessPal, he could use Fitbit, he can use various other apps to help him stay on track with his fitness goals. Of course, he has community, so definitely encourage him to stay engaged with his friend group. He could consider joining a divorce support recovery group, and he could look to his friend, Dave in particular, because he pretty much seems to be the most solid one, even though he's kind of gotten into a complacent state in his marriage. But he could look to Dave for accountability and emotional support and not just co-signing loans. So for a couple like Dave and Ronnie, who've kind of gotten into complacency, my husband just got home from work.
Hello, everybody.
He might look into reading books like The Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. And he might look at books like Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. Nagoski? I don't know how to say her name. Forgive me. But it's, we think about sexuality when we think about that book, but it helps him understand connection and desire as well. He could look into podcasts such as One Extraordinary Marriage, or again, Esther Perel's Where Should We Begin? And then some apps he might consider. He might consider using the Paired app, which my husband and I use literally every day. Babe, how long have we been on our streak?
Let's see. We are like 130 something. Let me go pull it up here. We are at 416 activities. But
we've done this 132 days in a row.
Oh, I got 131.
I got 132. See, I'm on top of it.
No, I think they gave you that one. We compete.
We didn't get no extra day.
You got an extra thing somehow.
No, I didn't. So anyway, literally since the day we heard about the Paired app, we have been using it consistently, and it gives you daily relationship building prompts. So it gives you a question that you answer every day. It gives you a game, and it gives you a quiz. And then every week it gives you insights so that you have something to talk about with your partner all the time. So this will be very beneficial for Dave and Ronnie, and it doesn't take that much time out of your day. I would say maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day. And then of course they can use the Google Calendar app to block their calendar to ensure that they have couple protected time. So they could make sure that they have date nights on their calendar every Saturday or whatever day works for them. They can make sure that they have time for sex scheduled on their calendar. And that is their cue to make sure the kids either have a sitter or that the kids are in their bed and they are not sleeping with mom and dad that night. And then, of course, continue to engage with their community. So they could also go out with their friends for couples date nights. So don't wait until there's a huge retreat that costs you thousands of dollars, but go out with your friends, your couple friends, for double dates and for accountability and just to be around adults, especially if you have kids who dominate all your time and energy. And then they may also consider a marriage enrichment weekend or doing a workshop. So like my husband and I are registered to go to a marriage enrichment weekend, and we're very excited about it. And it will be the next big trip that we did after our honeymoon. So it's something that couples could consider doing. Dave and Ronnie would benefit for something like this because it helps them focus on each other and, again, get out of that role of mom, dad, husband, wife, and see themselves as man and woman in love, friends, enjoying our life as a married couple. And I won't dive into too much into these other couples, but let's get into Joey and Lucy just for a minute because we see that they had issues with fidelity in the movie. So, uh, some things they might consider reading, again, the 7 principles for making marriage work, but they might also consider Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel because it focuses on desire and how that's cultivated in long-term relationships. And it seems that they've been the couple that's been married the longest in this movie, but they have sort of forgotten what makes them desirable. And I think they think that no one else would desire them. And what's funny is we see in the film that's exactly what gets them turned on to each other is recognizing that somebody else wants their partner, which from what my husband told me, that's pretty much what Mating in Captivity is about. I started it, I didn't finish it. I probably need to finish it just in principle. But it's the idea of never taking your partner for granted and basically seeing them as a desirable person, the one that you fell in love with, and not the person who fulfills a specific role. They could also listen to her podcast. There's other podcasts they could listen to as well that would help them in their marriage. And then, of course, it would be highly recommended for them to look for a couples therapist who specializes in infidelity recovery. Because even though they both seem to allude to cheating on each other, that is a different type of trauma and toxic stress that can infiltrate their relationship and cause more trust issues if they don't address it. I believe Esther Perel also wrote a book about infidelity recovery that they could look into. And then there's just other programs they could consider, like if they were Catholic, for example, the Retrovive program for, and this is really for marriages that are in crisis, which there definitely is. And they could also focus on doing intensive therapy weekends or retreats so that they could connect. And they also would benefit from using the Paired app or sharing a journal to document their journal journeys, their journey together, and also to sort of forge that reconnect as a couple and emotionally and slowly get back into the sexual connection. So when you build your lesson plan, you want to make sure that you actually incorporate assignments into your lesson plan. So it's great that you read the books, tune into the podcast, and all those things, but the way that you transition from learning to application is to incorporate those assignments. So here we've identified 4 types of assignments. We have reflection exercises, practice activities, projects, and experiments. So reflection exercises entails doing some processing. You might do some journaling. You might do additional self-assessments, anything that helps you build self-awareness and understanding about your partner, about anything you're trying to learn. Then we have activities. This includes doing real world experiments and role playing in different settings. It is basically to help you build your competence, strengthen your skills and your confidence in different areas before you delve into high stakes situations. And then we have projects. This is where you're creating something that's tangible. You're creating a budget. You're creating a date night calendar. You're creating uh, a way to manage boundaries in your family or different relationships. You're creating concrete systems that demonstrate skill in a certain area. And then you have experiments. So, one thing that's common in the online world, particularly content creation, is A B testing. So, you're creating different tests to see how things work for you. And the goal is to see how effective it is over time. You're going to document the things that work and what doesn't, and you're going to try to see why that is. So, an example of this, if you fall into financial domain as your lowest score, like the first week, you're going to focus on learning. You're going to read chapters 1 through 3, for example, in Smart Couples Finish Rich. And this all focuses on your mindset about money. And the first assignment you might have will be reflection. So you're going to do a journaling prompt answering questions about what was your family's relationship with money? What beliefs did you get from your family about money? An assignment Number two could be a project, and this is where you begin to track your household expenses for 1 week. And you're going to document everything. You can do that in Google Docs, you can do it on Google Sheets or Microsoft uh, Excel, anything that will help you document these things. And then week 3 and 4, you're going to focus on the core concepts. So, learning, you're going to continue reading that book, and you might get into budgeting and goals. And so your assignment for reflection in that week, those 2 weeks, would be creating a list of your financial goals, the goals that you have as an individual and the goals that you have as a couple. And then assignment 4 would be more practical. And so you would have a 10-minute conversation with your partner using the conversational framework from the book. You can schedule that day on your calendar to ensure you have that conversation. And basically, while you're talking, you may actually take notes, and that gives you something to reflect on in the week following. The whole point is to keep applying what you learn. A lot of these books, programs, courses, podcasts, if they're, definitely focused on educational, will give you assignments to do or make recommendations for places that you can go to put your learning into practice. So we definitely encourage you to do that. And you want to make sure that this fits into the time that you figured out well before you got into your lesson plan that you have available to you. So you might spend 1 to 2.5 hours reading or listening to podcasts that week. And then you might spend 1 to 3 hours that week actually applying it, doing the reflection exercises, completing the assignments in the book or the journaling activities, the discussion prompts, all of that. And you're just going to track your progress and plan for the week ahead. So for Shane, week 1 and 2, this is about him facing reality. So if he was to learn, he's going to read part 1 of Rebuilding the Building Blocks of Divorce Recovery and chapters 1 through 3 of the Total Money Makeover so he can face his financial reality. And his first assignment might include a journaling problem, which is, what am I actually grieving from my marriage? The other thing he might ask himself is, what feelings am I avoiding by staying busy with Trudy or just being involved with Trudy in the first place? So a project he could do for assignment 2 is to to make a picture, basically do a reality check of his post-divorce financial state of being. What are all the debts that he's accumulated? What is his income? What's going out? What are his monthly expenses? Does it include alimony? Does it include child support? All these things. It's just for him to look at his point in time, see where he really is financially. And now that he bought this motorcycle he can't afford, that his friend is co-signing, he needs to figure out how to incorporate that into his budget so that Dave doesn't end up paying his motorcycle payment. And then assignment 3 will be reflection, journaling thought. When was the last time that I felt physically energized or healthy? What was the difference then? What was going on in my life where I felt energized? And then for weeks 3 and 4, he's going to get more deep into all of that work. So he's going to continue reading those books, but now he might also start attending therapy sessions, or he might finally have scheduled those BetterHelp sessions. Assignment number 4, he's going to have an honest conversation with Trudy about where he is emotionally. And he may say that he doesn't necessarily want to end things, but he will just get frank with her about where he is for real. Like, if where he is as far as his relationship interests and goals. And that will give her an opportunity to decide whether she wants to continue the relationship. And as far as assignment number 5 for experiment, he could spend a weekend alone. No date, no distractions, none of that, no phone, none of that. Instead, he just takes some time to be by himself in a hotel, a staycation, or just even at home, really, and figure out how he feels being alone. Sit in his emotion, allow himself to process, allow himself to grieve, and see what comes of it. And then assignment number 6 could be a project. And this is where he finally creates a realistic budget based on everything he learned about his financial state, all the debts he has, all the income he has, everything that's changed since his wife left. And then he needs to also identify his spending habits. What causes him to make impulsive decisions such as making major purchases like motorcycles? Why does he feel the need to impress people? Those are some things he could look into. And then, of course, we talked about his fitness goals. So he could read Atomic Habits and basically get an idea about how habit formation works. And he could also think about some different ways that he likes to move, things that he likes to do for exercise, like walking or swimming or weights, and just figure out which one feels most sustainable and enjoyable for him so that he can eventually create a plan that is sustainable and that he will feel motivated to follow through on. And then the next thing he could do as well is practice assignment A. So he wants to get into developing a consistent sleep schedule that basically it would be like, I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock no matter what. And he sticks to that for 2 weeks, puts his phone away at 9 o'clock so he can wind down, get away from the blue lights. No technology, no TV, no iPad, no phone, none of that. And in the meantime, he'll also put on the sleep tracker so he can see how much sleep he gets over the next couple of weeks. And then assignment number 9 would include reflection. He needs to evaluate why he's doing certain activities with Trudy. Is he doing them because he genuinely enjoys them, or is he doing it because he's afraid she'll leave him like his wife did if he doesn't keep up with her? What would it look like if he were to be honest about his physical and emotional limitations at this season and stage of his life? That is something he would reflect on. And there's so many other things that he could do, but that's just a good way to get started. Again, we're transitioning from learning to application. So what that looks like for you will vary based on your domain focus, your start, stop, continue conversation, your SMART goals. But being real honest with yourself will help you develop the best personal curriculum for yourself. And again, I won't dive into these other couples, but each of them could create a personal lesson plan that works well for them. Let's do Jason and Cynthia because I think I've kind of neglected them in this presentation. So there's this, really high level. So we have first couple of weeks of their lesson plan. They could focus on the learning part, which would be reading the first part of Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. And then the first assignment could be how has it's a reflection exercise. So it'd be how has this fertility journey changed how I see myself or changed how I see my partner? That there gets them focused on their feelings. And that's something that they lacked in the movie, right? They were able to say what they thought, but they couldn't articulate how they felt. This gets them in their feelings, and it also helps them see where the other person is standing outside of a high conflict situation where you got old girl jumping out of a boat in shark infested waters to get away from him. And then another thing they could do for assignment is practice. So they could have one 30-minute conversation about their relationship that doesn't have anything to do with fertility. So it's just building that emotional connection. You're starting small with anything outside of the thing that's been high stress for them. And then weeks 3 and 4, they could focus on reclaiming their joy. So they could continue reading Come As You Are, or they may begin to read other books that focus on fun and friendship in their marriage. And an assignment they could do, a project they could do would be a scrapbook that incorporates creative things like remembering when, like their best trips. Like they could do photos of their honeymoon and their wedding. And they could do photos of the trip that they're on right now, and just like even airplane tickets and uh, screenshots of love letters or journals that they did together. All the things that include their favorite memories before they got into that fertility journey. And honestly, even some of the things that they treasure that happened along that fertility journey that would help them feel emotionally and spiritually or even physically connected. Just remind them of the good times, if you will. And another assignment could be an experiment. so they could just sort of like plan, if you will, a spontaneous day, where they basically flip a coin for every decision that they're going to make that day. There was a movie with Jennifer Garner a couple of years out. I think it was like 2020, 2021. I forgot what it was, but it was basically a movie with her kids and her husband, and it was basically a day where her kids were able to do anything that day, and it was planned, if I recall, but it was a planned day for them to do whatever they wanted to do. So that's the idea. People are turned off by the idea of scheduling sex, but you never know what's going to happen when you schedule sex. So they brought up this idea on Murder Mystery, Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston movie. And there was a guy on there. He was like, "Hey, today is Freaky Friday." And so my husband and I saw that. Was like, "Bet, let's do a Freaky Friday." And Freaky Friday is what it sounds like. Anything goes on Freaky Fridays. It's supposed to be about sex, but it could be you're talking about sex that day. It could be you try a different position. It could be you explore a fantasy or something like that. The day may be planned, but what's going to happen could be spontaneous, if you will. And Jason and Cynthia would definitely benefit from that, especially because their lives have been so rigid and so cold, and they're at a point where they just can't take it anymore. But one thing that is important to keep in mind while you're scheduling all these things is to schedule key checkpoints. You want to make sure that you're checking in with each other every week. Have a conversation on Sunday or Saturday, whenever you're free, every week, the same time every week. And you want to talk about what worked, what didn't, what did you learn? How is your learning changing the way you interact with each other, the way you behave, and what will you focus on next week? Have the conversation and then take some time for yourself or maybe together to brainstorm what the next week will look like for you. Then you want to do a mid-quarter check-in. So 6 weeks into your 90-day process, you're going to evaluate whether you're making any progress. Are you on track with completing your SMART goals? What's working, what's not? What learning is resonating? Is there some book or course or program or podcast you need to get rid of? Do you need to pivot? That's all up to you. This is your curriculum. So you don't have to stick to something that's not working for you. You don't have to stick with a book you can't stand. You don't have to stick with a program that's just failing you. Adapt to ensure that you stay engaged and that you can follow through and commit to your commitments, if you will. And then when you're about to approach the 90 days, you're going to do a review. That's a 1 hour discussion and some reflection. And you're going to talk about what skills you developed in the last quarter. What obstacles have you found yourself facing? What obstacles are you up against? And it could be physical, emotional, social, spiritual, financial. Those are some things you want to address, but then you also want to figure out, how do I deal with those obstacles? And then ask yourself honestly, do I even care about this domain? Is it that serious for me? Is it something that is a priority or that needs to be a priority right now? Is it causing more problems than it is helping us? It's your prerogative to change that. But I challenge you, if it's difficult for you, figure out why that is and see if there's some way you can pivot instead of give up. But again, even if you pivot, it's on your own terms. This is your curriculum. No one is forcing you to read a certain book, listen to a certain podcast, participate in a certain course or program. It's all up to you. But you are, because of that, the limitation is you and or your partner are the only accountability you have. And so somebody's got to buy into it. And if it's just you, then it may be that much more challenging because you're saying, I'm going to be putting in this intentional work in my relationship. And I don't know if my partner is with me or not in this, but you have to commit to your commitment so that you can see results on your end. And it may not be right away, but I'm convinced that you will get those results in the long run. But adapt as you need to. When things change, when the season and stage of your life change, adapt. It's all good. It's a personal curriculum. We just provided you a framework with the 6 domains to focus on so you can focus and have something to look at to decide what kind of goals you want to develop. But the key thing to know is this: progress compounds. If you improve 1 to 2 points in any domain, you're doing great. And the thing about it is that will have a ripple effect on all the other domains. How one thing affects you affects everything else. And you notice that you just keep living, you can see how all these things are connected. How your financial stress impacts your physical health, how your physical health impacts your emotional health, and all these things, your social dynamics, the family dynamics, all the things. So, if you make positive progress in one place, that's good. Celebrate your progress and keep working on the other areas so that you have this holistic growth and positive things taking place in your life. So you want to make sure that you focus on things that are achievable. Improve one or two domains by 2 to 3 points. That's achievable. Establish 2 to 3 consistent habits. Uh, exercising 3 to 5 days a week is one habit. Completing the paired app with your partner every day is another habit. Having weekly conversations that help you with your emotional connection is another habit. You see what I'm saying? It's manageable. And then complete 8 to 12 learning resources. I don't know. Maybe that's not realistic for you, but it could be 3 to 5 learning resources. Like maybe over the course of 90 days, you're able to complete 3 books. So that's 1 book a month. And then you find that you're able to listen to a few podcasts that resonate with you that are really, truly helpful. And then also maybe you're able to complete a short course on creating a budget. Again, it's all based on what works for you. And it's also achievable to be aware of your patterns, knowing what habits stick, where you feel the most difficulty sticking with certain things, and getting insight into why it is. But what's not realistic is thinking that you can transform all 6 domains all at once in 90 days. That is not the point. It's habit formation, learning, application, and then building on it from there. It's not realistic to think that you're going to have scores of 9 or 10 in every domain. If you have a 9 and 10 in every domain, I challenge you to really ask yourself, why are you marking it as such? Are you being honest with yourself? Are you in denial about anything? Are you looking at life with rose colored glasses? Like, what's really going on? It is not realistic to think that you will never trip up in this 90-day plan. It's your curriculum, but sometimes we take on a lot because we think we can handle things and we don't look at how life just be life. And so you might say, oh, I'm gonna read 6 books in 3 months, and then you be like, dang, I can barely get through one. If that happens, it's okay. Just put the 5 books away, work on those the next few quarters in the year, and just focus on the 1 book. If you finish the 1 book, you're doing well. And then it's not realistic to think that these 90 days will help you overcome any trauma or toxic stress, namely deep rooted trauma that has never been acknowledged, let alone addressed. You're going to need some professional help outside of a book or a course. And I recommend that you go seek that help if you find that that's where you are while you're delving into various resources. So if you want to go deeper into this, you can subscribe to Black Love and Cinema's email list, and we will send you your free personal curriculum guide to your love life. I messed that all up. We will send you a free personal curriculum to your love life guide, and it gives you a little bit more information than what I've talked about here, and it also includes discussion prompts that you can use along with the movie Couples Retreats.